Hey, everybody. Welcome to Live Dreams. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We have two special guests with us that are special guest interpreters. We have Clorinda and Denise. Hi, guys.
Hey, John.
So, this is both of your first time, right?
It is.
Doing Live Dreams. So, I should probably just exit and let you guys run the show.
Sounds like a terrible idea. Get yourself back in there.
Yeah, just kidding. So this will be fun. Obviously, our guest dream interpreters are people who have been through the spiritual intelligence mentorship, the advanced intelligence mentorship, the internship. They've been working for a period of months and some even years to be able to interpret dreams at the level that they're interpreting. It's not particularly difficult, but it is a learned skill. Um, Daniel was taught in the Bible how to understand the culture and the language of the Babylonians, and he was trained. And Joseph certainly had a level of training and at least a level of practice in his interaction with dreams as he came up to the position that God had for him before he was brought in front of Pharaoh, obviously. So that's what that's about. All right, we had leaves in the background. I just got rid of leaves. It does not fall. But let's open up in a word of prayer, and then we'll get started. Father God, we thank you for this time. We thank you for dreams. We know that dreams are your love language to us, Lord God, and we thank you for the opportunity to decode the love language of God to his children. Lord, we ask for wisdom. You said if anybody lacks wisdom, that we should ask you. And so, Father, we ask you for wisdom and discernment, understanding, that our hearing would be sharp on word of knowledge and word of wisdom today, that we would be able to immediately understand the symbols as people recount their dreams, Lord, to know what the meaning is and what the actionable intelligence is, the message that you're saying to them and what they should do. And so, Father, open our ears and bring our hearts, Lord, to you, close to you. Let it be said of us that we are among those who can stand in the counsel of the Lord to both see and hear your word. Bless this time together, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, if you have a short dream, and I mean probably a pretty short dream, and for some reason you don't want to be on camera, you can put it in the comments on the side. We don't always get to all of those because obviously those who are sitting in the back room of the studio here waiting for us to interpret the dreams, we want to give them priority as they're waiting. So why don't we start with Maria?
Hi, guys.
Hey there, how are you?
Good. It's exciting seeing new faces interpreting.
Thank you.
So this is a very short dream I had. So I dreamed that I was going in an elevator. I was going up. When I got off the elevator, I was going to visit young woman in her dorm room to say goodbye to her. That's it.
Interesting. Well, this is a relatively easy one. And it's easy because there's not a lot of symbols. So does anybody, Denise, Clorinda, do you get anything for this at all?
Do you know the young woman?
No. I just felt I just wanted to say goodbye to her.
Is she leaving or are you leaving?
I'm leaving.
Oh, interesting.
Well, the elevator going up suggests you're moving to a new place and more to an elevated place. And those people that you've been with up to this point, you're going to be saying goodbye to them. In this case, it's an individual woman.
Okay.
Cool.
And because it is in a dorm room, as you said, kind of thinking about a college environment, maybe you're saying goodbye also to the younger you, like to some of the things that you believed when you were younger, because now you're going to have new levels of revelation, hence the elevator going up. New levels of elevation, bringing new levels of maturity in Christ.
Cool.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I got the same thing, promotion, um, visiting someone that you're going to say goodbye to, a dorm, typically a college environment. So it's usually a level of training. So whether it's you, which I believe there's probably pieces of both of that it's you, but also that there is at least one other person that's been in community. That's what a dorm represents, as a community that you live in community with, that you've kind of graduated from the training and you're saying goodbye to them.
Okay.
So
Oh,
one of
awesome.
the things, so the actionable intelligence for you would be a phrase that I love and also don't love at the same time. And God has told me this in many seasons, is not everybody's supposed to go, which means the new you in the next season, not everybody's meant to walk with that person and experience that. And so sometimes there are people that they stay in your last season, but it's because God wants to promote you and graduate you to the next level. So I like what you're doing. You're saying goodbye, which means you're bringing honor to the current season that you're in. You're acknowledging that. You're staying friends with those people. But at the same time, you're moving on, even though those people won't go with you.
Okay. That's
Okay.
cool. Wow.
Well,
Awesome.
good dream. Thanks, Maria.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you two ladies.
You as well,
Thank
Maria.
you.
Take care. God bless.
Take care.
Blessings.
All right. We had a little dream up here. Let me see if we can pull this one up. I had a dream. I was sitting with a couple at a resort. A TikTok character was walking around with a white donut head. The couple laughed and said they don't like looking at it. It's creepy. Interesting. Well, sitting with a couple at a resort represents, of course, again, the idea of community, the idea of a place of rest or a vacation. A TikTok character is what we've dubbed in our society as an influencer, right? Somebody who makes their money or their livelihood or spends a whole lot of their time, making videos, posting things, and people get to know their character. It could be actually them. It could be like an alter ego. They're walking around with a white donut head. So it sounds like this is somebody who may not want to be known as who they are, that they're more of a kind of an incognito, different character, and known by whatever their avatar is or whatnot. A couple laugh, saying they don't like looking at it, that it's creepy. Okay, so the couple obviously, the people that you're in community with, was turned off by what they were seeing through an influencer. Now, most of the time we experience an influencer is through our phones, especially in TikTok or online occasionally. And sometimes meeting those people in person can be a very, very much of a turnoff. Did you guys get anything further for that?
I heard the word avatar. And I'm just thinking, I don't know, and maybe I'm injecting too much logic into this, but I'm seeing the couple as a little older. And so TikTok characters aren't necessarily going to be anything that is in their world or in their reality. And because of that, they're not drawn to it. It's creepy. It stands for something that's not real. So it's having the wisdom to recognize what is worth their time and attention and what is not. And it's creepy because it's representing something that's not real.
Okay.
I heard
Denise,
for
anything?
donut. Yeah, for donut head, I'm getting there's a hole in the head. Like there's something missing. It's not there. It's not real.
Yeah, I love the phrase my mom would use a lot. You need that like you need a hole in the head. And I think there's probably a lot that the boomer generation could use that to describe Gen Z or even some of the millennials, a lot of the people that would be on TikTok or an influencer on TikTok. There's just culturally, there's so much weird stuff that's happening on the social media places such as TikTok that our parents' generation just would have no clue. They'd be like, what is even going on? What is happening? But it's that things are not as they seem, that people experienced in real life may not be like their avatar or their influencer. And I think kind of the undertone of all of this is that the couple that you're with, the people that you're resting or in community with, they really like authenticity. They don't like the fake. They don't like the influencer avatar, whatever kind of hat you got on, mask or whatever. They think that that's kind of creepy and weird. And so you're in a small community, or at least with a couple of people who are desiring real, true, authentic relationship and community. And I would say that's a good piece of intelligence to know if you know who those people are, because you want to act accordingly when you're with them. All right. Well, let's do another
I
live
don't
one.
know
How about,
either if Tik
go ahead. What were you
Oh,
saying?
I was going to say, I don't know if this is anything or not, but TikTok also, it's what we say, TikTok time is passing. It's almost like this is short-lived. It's not going to go on.
Right. Yeah, short-lived influence. I like that too. All right, let's bring in Yolanda. Hi there.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so my dream is short, but I have a little prelude, little something that ties in before and after. And by the way, thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it. So this dream I had on April 4th of 2022. So that was just over a year ago. And I actually woke up trying to remember the dream. I know I had, I had this dream, but I just couldn't remember it. And then shortly after, I was listening to a Bible teaching, and the speaker said, "Let me give you a new set of glasses." And as soon as he said that, the Holy Spirit just brought the entire dream to my remembrance. And this is the dream. I was getting a sonogram to see if I was pregnant. The doctor came to give me the results. Her voice was somewhat muffled by loud sounds outside, but I believe I was not pregnant. That's what the doctor said. What I found peculiar was that she was wearing glasses but was missing one lens. The scene changed. I walked past several kindergarten age children watching a kids program. They all had to wear glasses to view it, but all the glasses had only one lens. And I thought the all seeing eye or one seeing eye in the dream, that was the end of the dream. Now, one little footnote I want to add, that stranger still was that evening I went to the mall shopping, and when I was coming out to get in my vehicle, there was a shrub next to my door, and when I looked, there was a pair of sunglasses and it only had one lens. And this was not dream, this part is live, this was in reality. So I have two things that happen in real life and then a dream.
So two things that happened. So the kindergarten thing was a real life thing too?
No, that was part of the dream, is that the scene changed from the doctor, that the female doctor, that her glasses only had one lens. And then in the dream, the scene changed, and I went past several kindergarten children watching a kids program, and they had to wear glasses just like when you watch those 3D movies. But they look more like regular glasses almost. But it's like they had to wear them in order to view the kids program. But all the kids' glasses had only one lens on their glasses.
Interesting.
And then, so that's the end of the dream. In real life, that evening, I went shopping, and when I was coming out of the mall, there was a shrub by my vehicle door, and there was a pair of sunglasses that only had one lens in it. So I've been trying to figure this out for a year.
That's really cool. That's God's telling you something, and He said it 3 times.
I believe that, but so I'm praying that this is the day that I get some revelation.
Yep. Denise, what do you think? Well, Denise and Clorinda
well,
are
when you
both
talked
wearing
about
glasses.
the glasses with only one, but I have 2 lenses.
Yep.
Yeah, there was only one lens.
What I heard for this, what I was hearing was monocle or myopic. So it's like looking one way only. When you're using both your eyes or have glasses with 2 lenses, it's giving you clarity of vision. You see properly. Where if you've got one lens in and one lens out, you're not.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So let me ask you a question. It was a little muffled at the beginning. You said you were getting a sonogram to see if you were pregnant.
Yes.
Okay,
Strangely
and
enough, and I'm well past pregnancy age. I'm almost 58. So
gotcha. That's okay. But where you said something about a muffled voice.
well,
Who was
just
muffled?
when the doctor came back in to give me the sonograms results, I couldn't hear her voice very well because there was a lot of loud sounds outside. So I described it as her voice was muffled, but it was more like it was I just couldn't hear too well by the loud sounds outside. What it was like, maybe construction or something. But it was like she had said that I wasn't pregnant. But what really caught my eye was that's when I noticed that she was wearing glasses with only one lens.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, this is certainly not the whole interpretation, but I'm kind of hearing that the doctor with one lens in, the medical community, and some of my opinion and bias is coming in here, but the medical community doesn't have the whole picture. They're missing part of what needs to be in place in responding to the health needs of individuals. And this is global, not just in the United States. So they only have part of the picture. So they only see in part. And then the children, the kindergarten children, they're young. They don't have the whole picture yet. They can't learn the whole picture because they're not developmentally ready for the whole picture. They can't see life in its entirety. So you've got two different sets of people. One that their training doesn't give them a holistic view, and the other ones they're too young, too developmentally young to establish a full point of view or learn, be whole in their understanding. But it sounds like maybe it's alerting you that those you run into come across their path may not have the whole picture. So I see the sonogram piece as, of course, you're not physically pregnant, but you are pregnant with an idea, or you are pregnant with something that the Lord wants to birth within you, and the doctor's not seeing it because he's not, that's not his area, and he's not been trained fully in that. So I believe the Lord's saying, I have something I'm going to birth in you. You are not somebody who doesn't have two sets of lenses. You see through my eyes. And to walk forward and ask him what I think part of the actual intelligence is asking him, what does he want to birth in you? What is it that he wants to come to life within you? That's part of what this dream is about.
Wow.
That's my
thank you. Wow, that's great.
I second that.
Well, I third that. The first thing I heard was they see in part, which again is from 1 Corinthians 13, for we know in part and we prophesy in part, right? So it's the idea of seeing in part. The thing that I think there's an interesting layer with the doctor, because the doctor is typically a professional we go to see things clearly, literally to diagnose something. And they're using a machine that helps them to see the unseen, right? Because they're doing a sonogram on the belly to see if there's a baby inside. And so they're using a tool that assists their sight to see the unseen, and they can't detect anything underneath. So it could be that you're not pregnant. It could also be that they're not able to detect what God is birthing in you.
Wow.
But also the fact that they have glasses on with one lens while they're viewing the viewing machine, I think is interesting. So when you get to the kids, they're watching a program on TV. So television, again, is another viewing machine. You're not watching something live. You're watching something that has been filmed and transmitted, and then they're viewing it, but they're viewing it through a lens of seeing in part. So even the programming or whatever it is that they're supposed to be watching, obviously in a kindergarten sense, hoping they're supposed to be learning something, is really the idea that it's distorted somehow. And then I really like what happens at the mall, because at the mall, you see in the bushes like some sunglasses. So it's literally like somebody took off their seeing in part and they threw it away. you know, and it's just laying there on the side of the road or whatever in a bush. And they didn't, you know, obviously most people that have glasses take great care that they don't lose their glasses, they don't break their glasses, they want to carry them with them. But these glasses had been broken, and whoever had those glasses apparently realized they are faulty and I can only see in part. And so I'm just going to discard them right here on the side of the road or in this bush or whatever. And so I think it's two things. It's letting you know the current environment that we live in, where we literally can't trust what we're hearing or seeing from doctors. That was proven over and over again. And even in the education system, what they're sharing with our younger generation, there's already a distortion or a bias because they're making people view something through a lens of looking at one thing. Do you know which lens was out and which lens was in?
You know, I got thinking about that when I was going to share the dream. I said, I wish I knew. I don't know if I knew it at the time of the dream and failed to write it, or I just never know. Because like I said, I had this dream and I wrote it down, but it was just over a year ago. So I'm not sure. In going back in my mind, I can almost see that it seems like there's a lens here and not a lens on the right.
That's exactly what I saw.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So there's no lens on the right, but there's a lens on the left.
On the left, yeah.
And that's exactly what I saw.
Memory.
And that's what I see as the distortion in the world. Is the left is trying to alter the right, not that, and I'm not saying Republican or Democrat. I'm just saying from a political stance or from a ideological stance, the right is at least in this time frame a little bit more known for pursuing the actual naked truth, like what is really happening. And the left wants to distort. They want to distort identity, they want to distort race, they want to distort all these kinds of things to try to mix everything up to make it look muffled or for their agenda or whatever. And so what's happening is people are getting a distorted worldview, whether it's how they diagnose things, which shouldn't be subject to somebody's lens or worldview. It should be based on, follow the science and the facts. But we know that hasn't been happening. And certainly in the education system. And these are two big areas that it's shown up in. But I like the end, because the end, I believe, is what God is saying is discard your knowing in part. It's better to look at the facts and see the world around you for what is actually happening instead of what somebody else wants you to see or seeing through a partially distorted lens. And also it's prophetic that people are starting to do that. They're starting to take their lens off and say, I just want to know the truth. I don't want to hear. And I think this even leads into what happened yesterday with the big shakeup in the media. People are tired of the left and even the right. They're tired of the distortion. They want to know the facts. Just tell us the story. Don't be a pundit. Don't give your spin. We just want to know what's going on. And so we're moving from a place of seeing in part to having more exposure happen and to seeing things, particularly in the medical system and then the education system, and to have a clearer view of what's coming. And so I think the challenge in the actionable intelligence for you is to make sure you have an unbiased, unvarnished view of what God is showing you, particularly in these two areas.
Okay. Thank you. Wow, that's powerful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Yolanda. It's good to have you.
All right. Thank you. You have a good
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we had I think one or two short dreams up here. I'm going to see if we can catch them before. So this is a real simple one here. I was in a small classroom, went outside where I was given a piece of paper as I was standing at a podium like a graduation type of thing. Who wants to take that one? Yes, Clorinda, I see that hand.
I see you. So the classroom is small and you're heading outside into the big wide world. You're going to go stand at a podium. If you're standing at a podium, you're most likely speaking. So you're going to be given speaking opportunities, and a graduation type thing means that you're probably going to give a speech. You're not just going to wing it. And I feel like the piece of paper is the Lord saying, I'm going to give you the words to say as I call you out from the place of learning to the world. That's my short answer.
That's really good. I like that. Anything to add to that, Denise?
That he's got a specific message for you to give, and you're prepared. The piece of paper, whatever the message is, it's going to be on that piece of paper. Also, that you're standing at the podium. I'm also getting a sense that you're making a stand with whatever it is, the message. That you're taking a stance, and that will be in the message.
Yeah, I think that's important. I saw the piece of paper as like a scroll, almost like a graduation certificate, but it could also be notes for what they're about to say at the podium. So that's up for the dreamer. You probably saw it clearer. It could be that God, you've graduated, you've come out of like the cave as like the prophetic thing, being in the cave, being in a small classroom. You're about to be put on a platform, shown to the public, and you're already prepared for what you're supposed to say. Or it's a certificate of graduation. It's a point of demarcation in your life. The old is past, the new has come, and now you're on a platform, on a stage where you're going to give an opportunities to speak. Either way, it's pretty close, but yeah, that's awesome. Well, this is an interesting. Rach Ann put this up when we were doing the last stream. This is crazy. My dog Justice has a crooked eye, and I pray that side. Not going to name the side, but I pray that side straighten up. I literally just got pink eye in the same side eye. Interesting. Seems like I was talking to several people about the idea of seeing in part. So, all right. Let's bring in Valerie Joy. Hi there.
Well, Denise. Hello. Hey girl, hey.
Hey there.
Well, Clarinda, I've never had the pleasure. How are you, sweetie?
Good. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. You look so pretty, Denise. You look so pretty, girl. Anyways, how are you? Okay, I have an actual short dream. So I'll just pull out the symbols too. So I was in somebody's house, and I knew I was on assignment, and I'm looking for something in this house. I ended up taking trash cans out to the curb, and then I ended up in a mall, which I'm always in a mall, and I'm working at a very specific store, and they loved having me there, and they wanted to keep me happy. It was both a cafe and a soap store. And eventually, Mark, Jordan, Sydney, and I are walking around the mall, and we're pushing a baby in a stroller. So I have a lot of mall dreams. And I have dreams of being in houses on assignments too. This is definitely a repeat dream. Okay.
Well, the mall to me, I always hear marketplace. You know, so the idea of the business world, the idea of, back in the day, towns used to have a town center or a square, and the market. The vendors would come out and sell bread and cheese. And I think of what's that show, Beauty and the Beast, how in the morning, it starts out with her going through the market and looking at the bread and the wine and the cheese, and all the vendors are rolling out their goods for the day and all of that stuff. So I always feel like it has a significance to what's happening in the marketplace, which is interesting because there's a lot going on in the marketplace right now, particularly culturally, ideologically. There are some major plays that are happening. But what do you think, Denise?
Well, the fact that you're in a house and you're looking for something, do you know what it is you're looking for?
I don't. I only know I'm on assignment.
Okay, so you end up taking trash to the curb, and what I'm getting is that you're doing a self-inspection of things in your life, things that are close to you, and that you gather them up and take them out. They go to the curb, and then you're at the mall and working in a store that's also, you said,
It was a cafe and a soap shop. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Out with the old name.
So out with the old, and it's preparing you for you going out into the marketplace. So I know you, so in a little bit about you, and think that this dream is speaking to that call that's on your life.
Yeah.
For what you're preparing to do and what you're planning to do.
Yeah. I love that I'm with my family. Just a little bit. Yeah. I love that I'm with my family, which of course, rescuing people out of trafficking. It's a family call. It's not just a me call.
You said Mark is on assignment?
Well, just the four of us are.
You said Mark on assignment?
No, just I was on assignment. It's just the four of us were walking the baby in the stroller together, which I believe we're called as a family. I mean, our last name means deliver. So we are called to the trafficking industry as a family. And my kids are so on board with it. And God's going to use, all of our giftings. So, and my Sydney, often you guys see Sydney on here. Her gifting is taking something that is not on the outside looking beautiful, and she wants to make the inside beautiful and shine it on the outside. And I mean, all of this goes together. So, yeah.
Well, and the sense of the baby with the stroller and that you're all together, I think that baby is representing what you're birthing.
Yeah.
Or what you've actually already started at birth, right? That it represents work in that ministry.
Well, it's funny that you use the word marketplace, because that's where the Lord is calling me, into the marketplace, to merge both ministry and the marketplace together, to reassimilate these women into society. So it only makes sense. So, I mean, you do know me.
Well, you go into the marketplace to find them.
Yeah.
You find them in the marketplace.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting the marketplace can represent human trafficking itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, women, men, children are bought and sold and traded. It's a whole industry that I pray God judges very soon, that those that are involved in this type of trading will go away and quickly. But yeah, I do think it's a calling, an identity dream. Go ahead, Miranda.
I was just going to add that you're working at a store where it's focused on a cafe and soap, and you are not only have food, the meat and milk from the Lord for these individuals, but you offer them the opportunity to get cleaned up and to be made new. And I just think there's something fabulous about that cafe / store / soap place, because you're super involved in spreading the word of the Lord and helping people get cleaned up. That's just awesome. And I think there might be a dual piece about the house where you're on assignment. It could actually be a house where you are on assignment to find an individual or set of individuals, and you are cleaning up and you've taken care of the trash that's in there. I mean, we're just using that term for whatever was not right. You've taken it to the curb, it's taken care of, and now you have freedom to kind of go back to the job that you normally have in the marketplace. I can just see it as a sidebar to your call within the marketplace to rescue kids.
I cannot push this enough, people. God speaks so vibrant through our dreams if we're just willing to listen. And I mean, this is such a great platform. And I know Denise from Sim, and I haven't continued with it just because I'm working, as you said, in the marketplace. But I encourage people, dig deeper into your dreams, and if you can take the classes, take the classes. And because I mean, seriously, I'm dreaming this, but I'm not intentionally trying to like, Lord, you know, what's the assignment? He's just constantly telling me your assignment is in the marketplace. And it's, Denise is right. I literally go into the marketplace and I look for people to pray for. I look for people who are broken and hurting and in trauma, and say, what can we do to fix this? Oh, Jesus. So I just can't encourage enough people to look deeper into your dreams and trust that the Lord speaks to you. There's people out there that are like, God doesn't speak to me. This is just one of the many ways he does. So I appreciate you all. So, and girl, you know, I love you. I love you, my friend. I love you, John. Clarinda.
Love you too, Valerie. Thanks for being on.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Val.
Wow. Always a joy. All right. Let's go with Tanya.
You okay?
Hi there. Yeah, we can hear you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I've been on before.
Yeah.
So
Welcome back.
hold on to your hats.
Okay.
It's quite an interesting dream. So I'm in a college and I'm running for class. I was clearly late to class, and as I get to the doorway just before there's a glass, upper glass wall, and I could see inside the classroom. And when I looked in the classroom, I saw Hillary Clinton. And all I said was, "Oh God, what is this?" When I opened the door to the classroom, I saw that it was an art class. The teacher was Hillary Clinton. I walked in, I was looking for a seat and found a seat by someone I knew from a previous job who I didn't particularly like. He was a male. When I sat down, there was a big canvas on the wall next to us, and it had a horse outlined. And the horse is straight ahead, but on the canvas, the horse is looking at us on the canvas. And our assignment was to, color in this horse. So instead of starting to color right away, I started to walk around to see what other people were doing with theirs. As I walked, I saw a guy. He turned his canvas around. He was outlining his horse with purple and green sparkly type pens or markers. They were like very sparkly. I started, as I was walking back to my canvas, I looked down below in another row and saw a black woman dressed in yellow and black flowing garment. And she did not have a horse on her canvas, but whatever she was putting on the canvas was beautiful. And I thought, wow, she's some artist. I went back to find where my canvas was, and I started to pick up the markers, and I looked down the row where I am, and I saw a white horse standing there. And I looked at the horse and I go, oh my God, is it giving birth? Because I could see the whole hind of it, and something started to fall out of the horse. And when something dropped to the ground, I looked back at the hind quarters, and all of a sudden I saw the head. And that's when I realized the horse that fell out and its head were disconnected. And so they just were not attached. I went to look for the teacher, which was Hillary, and I didn't see her, and I woke up.
Well, this is a fun one.
I was like, what did I drink the night before? Did I drink something funny? Because I don't know. I was like, did I drink a lot of wine or something? I don't get it.
Wow. Interesting. Did you visit the bar, the Galloping Pony, or anything?
I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
Wow.
There's so many different things in here. I was like, okay, where is this going?
Man.
And I just find it interesting because this happened 2 days ago. I find it interesting today in the news is everything about the Clintons.
You found what?
There's a lot of things in the news about the Clintons today.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Do you like horses? Are horses meaningful to you in any way?
I like horses. I used to horseback ride when I was a kid, but I haven't in a very long time. But I do love horses. I'd love to have a farm and rescue some, but not on an everyday basis now.
Right. And so I want to make sure I understand what you're saying about, so the horse was actually giving birth, but the baby that was birthed was separated between the head and the body.
The body fell out first, and then I looked at the hind, and then I saw the head, and then the head dropped on the ground. And it was a white horse giving birth.
Was it a white horse that it gave birth to?
I couldn't tell because everything was on top of it, the whole.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot. We can kind of hit the highlights. There's a lot of colors, there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of what other people are drawing. Obviously, the main focus is the art class, the instructor, the horse. You're drawing or outlining, and then the horse giving birth.
Right.
So I think it's really a lot to work with here. Somebody put art, craftiness, witchcraft. Interesting.
Well, I do see. I mean, I can launch into the very beginning. You're heading into a college and you're late. I mean, as people in the know and believers, we know college campuses are really not the places you want to hang out or spend time because they have such a different culture and they're typically not campuses where God is glorified. But I feel like the Lord's using this example, like sending you back into college. You're a little late to the game, but you have you're looking through the window of this door into the classroom that you're trying to get into, and you're finally getting a greater vision of what it is that you are to see or what you should be seeing. Maybe a vision of the world as it is today, instead of, because we tend to sit and kind of feed our mind and soul with people that we know and are familiar with. And so we don't tend to have a full understanding of the positions that the world is. And so I see you looking into this window, which is a new perspective, a new vision, a new place to see. And you describe someone that you didn't really care for in the past in a work environment. You describe a very a man who flipped the canvas upside down and is painting with these sparkly things that don't seem like real paint and art to you, probably. There's a Black woman who is producing something beautiful, but it doesn't necessarily look like a horse. And then there's a white horse giving birth. But all the commonality is that they all have something to do with this horse because that's the focus. But they all see the horse from a different perspective. And you're seeing the horse, the real horse, has been what's being given birth by this real horse is actually disconnected from reality. I mean, a horse can't develop in the womb with the head detached from the body. That's not possible. So you're seeing something as really askew in the world, and this perspective has opened up. It's a greater perspective. You're seeing more than you did before, and you realize that the world and the options in the world are just disconnected. I know that it's only a surface layer, but there's one little piece. Take it away, John.
Yeah, Denise, did you have any thoughts you wanted to bring in, or I can go?
Well, the horse. I agree with Corinna that you're getting different perspectives of the horse. The horse is an animal that oftentimes represents a certain level of power, but it's like here it's very, very broken and disconnected. There's something wrong with the power, if you will, in how the horse is represented in the dream.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's there's that verse. I think it's in the movie Seabiscuit where they talk about he cannot sit still with the sound of the trumpet, where it talks about the horse and how powerful of a creature, particularly a war horse, is. But then I'm also struck with the idea of we know the messengers of the apocalypse as the four horsemen of the apocalypse because they're all on a horse and they're announcing something. They're announcing an end. They're announcing judgment. I think it's super interesting the fact that at the very part of the dream, you're in college, which means you're about to learn something at a very advanced level. You're late, which means you're not obsessed with watching the news. So you're going to get exposed to something that you didn't know yet. So you're kind of late to the game. And before you get to class, you see this wall of glass where you can see inside the class, which is the veil, which means not yet, but something's coming. And then you step through the door, which means it's coming in your lifetime or in your experience into what's coming. But what you see is you see Hillary Clinton as an art instructor. And so what she's up to, what she's doing is about to be exposed. That's what you see is about to happen. That's the very first part before you breach the door. Once you breach the door, now you're literally in the room. So it's part of, it's not what's about to happen anymore. It's here. It's what's happening. And what you see is the outline of a horse. The outline to me is the war plans of the enemy. And it's not fully developed. It's not fully in color. It's not fully completed. It's just an outline. It's like a strategy of here's some things that we want to do on this particular side to whatever. And then what she's doing, as what any art instructor does, is she's having people copy the horse, starting with an outline and then to color in their own piece, which to me reminds me of the colorful agenda that we're seeing out in the world today. And they're, painting with purple and very sparkly colors and very, very weird, strange, all kinds of things. They're just, I think they're people who have very little identity and they're struggling for, expression, as in the comment. So I think, going through the colors.
Well, it's interesting too that she's giving instruction.
Say again. Say that
Sorry,
again.
there was a delay. It's interesting that she's given instructions to color. She's to color, but instead she goes around and inspects everything rather than following the directions of the instructor.
Interesting. Okay. So the idea of color, particularly the idea of the rainbow, for God, it means his promise and his word. For a lot of other people, it means free will of expression to color their own life, to define who they are, to say I'm this or I'm that, or I identify as this or I identify as that, or whatever. So it's literally the idea to take something that's built for war, that they're supposed to be replicating, and they're using the model or the outline of what would be used for war as a means of just expressing themselves. So there's a whole lot that we could unpack there. We probably don't have time to go into all the different people and all the different colors because each one is significant. But again, to keep it at the 50,000 foot level, the white horse standing off to the side, we know who the white horse rider is in Revelation. And that's when the show's over, right? That's when justice and, the adults come back to the room. That's when there's an answer for what's about to take place. So the idea that a white horse would be giving birth, and what I hear is partial birth, because what happens is, obviously the body comes out first and then the head, and it's either people that are, and it's a play on words,
right?
It's literally what's being birthed are either people trying to get ahead or people that have no body. And so it's kind of both of those together. It represents a generation that's trying to get ahead, trying to get noticed, trying to get seen, trying to violently enforce their will upon everybody else. And they have nobody, that they're a very, 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 very tiny percentage of the population. And it's really the people that want to cater to levels of insanity of different movements. And I'm not talking about one movement because there's a lot of them out there. that are kind of anti what the white horse stands for. And so it's the idea that what's being birthed is something that's only going to be partial. It's not going to be fully expressed. It's interesting that it's coming out of the white horse, which, depending on how you view that, it could be coming out of the church. So there's a lot there. But what's happening is the directions that are being given by the particular art instructor are being followed to somewhat, but not completely. And then there's this massive distraction of what's really going on. There's the tracing outline of what's really happening, which people want to say is the war. Reminds me of the media. This is what's going on in the world. No, actually, that's not what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's the distraction. What's really going on is there's a real horse here that's giving birth to something that we're experiencing right here in front of us. And so it's the juxtaposition of what the media is saying, or the alleged powers that be are trying to push out as their agenda, and what God is actually doing.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too at the very end too. When I looked up to try to find her, Hillary disappeared. She's gone.
Yeah.
Good thing.
I think it's interesting because, as Scott says, the white horse signifies justice, goodbye, lawlessness, and disorder. Lots of exposure dreams today.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, off with their heads.
The
beast and his army were slain with the sword. Valerie got who was just on, got Mr. Ed, the talking horse. And I think there's a lot of.
That's interesting because the guy that I saw from my past, his name was Ed.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, so there's more there. What we encourage people to do if they have a longer dream is to use what we call the Joseph method. Write the dream down, write down all of the symbols, ask God for a word of knowledge on every single one of the symbols, and then looking at the symbols, put together what we call a summary, and then instruction on what you should do. We teach that. It's called the Joseph method. If you're unfamiliar with that, by the way, you can take the dream course. You can be part of the spiritual intelligence mentorship. We go deep into that, but that's the method that we use. We don't talk about it a lot because we just kind of take notes on the symbols. We answer the main symbols, and then we say, okay, this is what God is saying, and this is what you should do.
Yeah.
So I think what God is telling you is, first of all, you got to see what was coming, which means that you're a seer. So that's an identity and calling, that you're a seer, that God is showing you things. And of course, he showed you in a dream, which emphasizes the idea that you're a seer. The second part is that when you got into the classroom, most people, when they get into the classroom, albeit late, Tanya, they would go sit down. But you don't. You wander around and start looking at what everybody else is doing.
Well, no, I went in to look for a seat, and that's where I found the guy that I had originally gone to school with, so I sat over by him, and that's where the canvas was.
Okay, but then you saw the lady down the street, or the lady down the aisle, and then this over here. Like you didn't get right to work. You were kind of looking around.
Yeah, I was looking to see what everybody else was doing.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting too, because again, that's the idea of looking around, being a seer. What is happening? What is really going on in this reality? And then you began to notice even the detail, the colors that, she's using black and yellow, and they're using purple, sparkly green stuff over here. And then there's this horse that may or may not be giving birth to something that may or may not be real or living or have a head, or who knows what's going on.
Right.
But to me, what I heard when the horse was mentioned is I heard an abortion. And then I also heard partial birth, because what came out of the horse was the body of the horse, and then what came out later was the head. So it didn't all come at once. So as we know from some of the comments here, if the white horse represents him who is faithful and true and justice, then what's coming out would be a partial justice or an abortion of justice. Not that it comes from the white horse particularly, but it's an idea of what's happening in the environment that we're living in.
So it's an exposure of it?
It's an exposure of it.
Okay.
And it's an exposure that's happening. You know, we got to be careful not to mix metaphors, because it's an exposure that's happening by the white horse. And literally the white horse is pushing something out. It's pushing out the idea of people wanting to get ahead of a head that has no body, you know. And so it's the fragmentation of everything from society to church to the education system that's happening. And people are too busy painting with their little paints or their colored pencils to realize what's really going on in the same room would be hugely distracting. I mean, if that was literal, that this was happening while you were in an art class, I mean, and so it's the clash of kingdoms. It's some people are aware of what's going on in the room, and other people have no concept.
Right.
They're just coloring with their little colored pencils and trying to keep up.
Interesting. Well, that was good.
The biggest piece about this for you is that you're going to be in the room when things happen. You're going to be in the room when an abortion of justice is exposed. And when, I don't want to judge anybody, so I don't want to say the wicked, but let's just say those who have been in charge and who've been suspect disappear. There's still going to be other people that are sitting in the back of class, working on, you know, copying what's on the board, tracing the outline. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you there's the people who know, and then there's the people who are in the back that kind of turn a blind eye and don't really want to know, or
Right.
You know what I mean? They're just like looking the other way, hoping it's not really true, and you know, we'll just keep going on because it's not affecting me, so to speak. But I think we're at the point in this world that everybody's going to be affected in some way or another.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
certainly that man who flipped the whole canvas
Yeah.
and viewed it from the back, he doesn't want to face reality. He doesn't want to look at the structure, or he doesn't want to live in the same rules. He wants to do things and ignore what is in front of him. So I think that supports your last statement.
Yeah, and his markers were very, and he just did the outlining of the horse in the purple and the green, and it was all sparkly and fun, and you know, whatever, and it was cool and whatnot. And then you had the black woman that was like doing all these things, and she was like a true artist, boy. She was going hog wild on her canvas. So
Yeah.
all right, well, thank you so much. That was very interesting. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
And
right,
like I said, there's more
no
there.
more
But
wine. I don't think I had any, but I don't know if that was just crazy. I had no way to figure that out at all.
Yeah.
But thank you. I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. All
Take
right.
care, Tanya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was fun. I like what who was it up here? Ray Chan said, all these dreams are about clouded vision versus us as seers. Jesus, open our eyes. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. A lot of times when we get into live dreams, we'll see a pattern that emerges, and we have no idea. We don't preview the dreams. I don't have any idea who's going to be on a show on any given day, and we don't have any idea what they're going to say, which we like that because it's kind of the double blind method. You know, we don't know who's going to be on, and we don't know what's going to happen, and so we don't orchestrate these ideas coming together. It's totally God that does that. But it's interesting that there's been a lot about exposure, about sight, about seers, and about what's really going on. So with that, let's bring on Mady. Hi, Mady. You got to unmute.
Here I am. I'm
There
mute.
you are. How are you?
I'm good. How's everybody?
Good.
Maybe.
Hi. So I had this dream last night. I was in my house, and it was on a block with a lot of houses. I heard a loud alarm and opened my door, and I looked down the street, and everybody had opened their door because this announcement was a public announcement. There was a very loud announcement for everyone to stay inside. Then we were all told to drop everything and go upstairs. There were a lot of people. I noticed some of my friends and we started to go up this wooden ladder. And we were excited, not afraid. Um, Actually carrying like colorful beach towels and wearing bright colors. And the ladder, all I can think of is Jacob's ladder. You know the toy? It's a wooden toy. You shuffle back and forth. It's got ribbon on it. I mean, they're made out of plastic now, but I should have pulled mine out. You shuffle it back and forth, and it's called Jacob's ladder. It's 5 or 6 pieces of wood that, you know. Anyway, we were walking up this ladder that was almost on hinges, back and forth. And then all of a sudden the feeling changed. I looked out the window and there were soldiers with heavily armed, dark uniforms, but they had on a red kilt-like piece, pleat, in the middle of the uniform. And that was ominous. People were getting concerned. They wanted to go back and get their things because we all left so quickly.
Interesting. So where were you when this announcement happened?
At home, in a house.
Okay.
Regular neighborhood, regular like suburban neighborhood.
Interesting. Interesting. Denise or Clorinda, do you have any initial thoughts?
I'm going to give it over to you, John. I'll probably
Can you
have some.
describe the uniforms again.
You want to hear what I thought? What I got from it? Give you a hint?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Katie, by the way, has been through our school as well, through the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship. And so a lot of times we like to encourage people that have done that to get on and share what their thoughts are, because they know how to do this. So then it's only a matter of time before Madia will be a special guest dream interpreter herself.
Well, thank you. So, of course, I am influenced because I listen to a lot of the prophets. And as one person wrote in, Barry Wunsch mentioned that we're all going to be called to stay inside. So I think this is a prophetic dream, foretelling. I think the colorful, not afraid people are, because we're focused upwards and we're elevated, so we're climbing the ladder, Jacob's ladder, upward. I really believe that's going to happen. Then it got ominous. It got very scary when I looked out the window and saw soldiers sweeping the neighborhood to make sure nobody was outside. And first I thought China for the red panel and the uniform. And then I thought of walking on the beach thinking about it, a kilt, a red kilt. And then I remembered that Donald Trump, a Scottish background generationally. And that red could be red, the Red Party. That's it.
Interesting.
I could be totally off, but I get the sense that this is happening soon, and it's not just my sense, but
yeah, there's been a lot of dreams and a lot of prophecy about martial law, military action, things like that. So it's interesting because to go upstairs means there's another story. So things are not as they seem. So there's literally going up higher. Don't be caught on the ground level. There's a lot of people that I was talking with a friend about this today, that when people prophesy a lot of times or share a dream, they talk about what's happening at the ground level, at the very base level. And it's almost like the dream is literal, or, some basic stuff. But I think what this is saying is that there's another story. In other words, go up higher, press in deeper, get the view of heaven and not the view of earth on what's happening. When you said red, I heard the same thing as Monica here, red coats or Great Britain. And it reminded me of the, there's a lot of buzz. There's been a lot of buzz in the last couple of years about the Act of 1871. Whether that's true or not, whether you know about it or not, or believe it or not, it's the idea that basically a group of men from England got together and wanted to get back the United States that they lost in the Revolutionary War and that they didn't win back in the War of 1812. And so they created this way of using economic influence and blah, blah, blah. That showed up in other dreams. That showed up in other dreams that those systems will fall. There's been other dreams people have had, particularly about the redcoats. So it's interesting when you said a kilt-like structure. To me, that doesn't speak of China. It speaks more of England. Now, again, I know England, Great Britain is an ally, but I know that there are forces in London and that operate in London that probably have to do with things like the global bankers and the central banks that are not necessarily at all aligned with the sovereignty or the well-being of the United States whatsoever. And there's been a lot of chatter and a lot of buzz about what their agenda is, what they're trying to accomplish, what that looks like. And so I think it's speaking to that. I heard what a lot of people heard, EBS, the announcement, like the emergency broadcasting system. And so this is going to be, at minimum, a regional event, very likely a national event, possibly a global event. Again, a friend of mine we were talking about this today, and they just did a test of the emergency broadcast system in the state of Florida within the last 3 or 4 days. They also did a test in England. And so there's other places and parts of the world that are testing the emergency broadcast system right now, which to me would telegraph the idea that they're going to need to use it in days to come. So the idea of don't go outside, to me, represents obviously a lockdown, a level of control. Unfortunately, I'm the type of person that when the sirens go off and there's a tornado, I immediately go outside and start looking around, get up on the roof, and where is it? See if I can see it, Let me digress to a funny story. I live downtown in a high-rise apartment building on the 10th floor, and I could see the whole entire southern half of my city. I could see for probably 20 or 30 miles out because we were the largest building on that side of town. Well, my sister lived 3 blocks away, unlike the second story of a smaller apartment building, and the tornado sirens went off. It was supposed to be bad. She's freaking out. What do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, come to my house. Come to my house. She's okay. So she grabs her little dog and comes over to my house. And we're standing there on the 10th floor looking out my window. And she's like, what the heck am I doing here? We're on the 10th floor. And I'm like, yeah, but the view, we're going to be able to see this thing coming from. She was so mad. She was like, I would have been better on the second floor at my place. But I'm like, this building's been here for 100 years. It's not going anywhere. And sure enough, it didn't. But that's the idea of come up higher to really be able to see what's going on. The idea that you heard Jacob's ladder is seeing from heaven's perspective. The idea of soldiers means that there's going to be a level of law and order restored, perhaps at the point of a gun. And so I think I think it's interesting of what God is saying there. Great Britain just turned on their emergency warning system for the first time. Possibly negative stuff that it could be used for. The test in Florida was at 4 a.m. Yeah, so I think there's some books out there that I've read, and I'm not necessarily endorsing these books, but Killing the Planet is one, and The Death of Uncle Sam or Killing Uncle Sam is another. And it's all about a global elitist agenda, where it came from, the money behind it. It's very well researched. It's something that was there's a lot of information. And so when you get into reading and doing research on stuff related to, I was in finance, so I did a lot of reading about boring banker stuff and understanding the central bank and the creation of the central banking system and the bankers that wrecked the world is a good book, talking about what happened between World War I and World War II and how it was a prelude to World War II because they made the reparations from World War I for Germany untenable. There was no way that they could have bought their way out. So basically, they set themselves up for another war. I like this. I heard the part about beach towels, happy-go-lucky people. I heard people were eating and drinking and marrying, had no clue what was happening. The sirens were even going off. So I think that is representative, unfortunately, of a lot that's going on. I think that there's I think there's groups that are trying to wake up people and let them know what's happening, and people still just, no matter how bad it gets, people just accept whatever they see, whatever the media tells us. This is what's really going on, and like they can't make it more blatant and more in your face than if they all took their masks off at the same time and said, "This is who we really are, and this is what we're doing," and that's what's coming. But I think it's the idea that there's an enemy out there, that there's an exposure that's coming, and there's a situation that the average person may be sidelined in because what happens is they don't want the civilians or whatever involved in the war. And then we're all going to have to make a decision as to whether we comply or not. But I think the most important part of the dream is the idea of going up higher, is the idea of getting to a place where we rise above what's happening in the streets, what people are telling us, what even the emergency broadcasting system doesn't mean it's necessarily the good people or the right people that are in charge that are telling us what to do. Because it depends on who's in control of that microphone when they decide to turn it on. So that's where we'll have to use our discernment, as that may be the time that everybody needs to go out into the streets, and bring your slingshots and your bow and arrows with you, because that may be go time. But there's a lot of people that are just going to comply. They're just going to do what they're told. We found that with the last go around. People they like being told what to do, even if it's to their own detriment, and they'll listen to certain groups of people that in past seasons have been credible and have clearly eroded trust in entire industries. And there's many that we could name that we don't need to name because we're not here to point fingers. But the idea is something that's coming that we'll be able to bring the pitchforks. We'll be able to look outside and see what's happening. But there'll be an announcement that'll be made, and there'll be an attempt, at least for a period of time, to try to control people. And whether that's to control people to minimize casualties because it's a good thing, or whether it's to control people because they want to implement an agenda and there's a run on the banks or this or that, remains to be seen.
I got the sense that Trump was going to do that and enforce military, martial law, and that we were going to be inside for a while for our own protection. And I live in a town where when there's a huge hurricane coming, these people, they're always on the news in New York because people you're supposed to evacuate, and it said you got all these people on the boardwalk checking out the waves, and it's
exactly. I'm one of those kind of people.
You would be there, John.
I would totally be there. If the army's coming through, I'll join the army. I'm with you.
Am I the only one that has that sense of Trump making an announcement in martial law? Was my sense?
No, there's a lot of dreams and a lot of prophetic words to that. But what's really interesting is it's like there's multiple different realities. The media has done everything they possibly can to try to suppress that idea and gaslight people that feel like that is even remotely a possibility. And that may be on purpose. I'm sure it is. But is that the reality? It's hard right now to know what the reality is, even if you have high-level connected people who are in intelligence, who are saying this and saying that. You don't know where they get their information. And so there's a lot of misinformation. Part of it's necessary. Part of it is because most people probably couldn't really handle what's really going on, and the level of evil and corruption and wickedness that is going to be righted through what's about to come next. I think is it's just going to be on display for everybody to see. So go higher, press into God, get heaven's perspective, get the higher perspective, which means write your dreams down, listen to your dreams, listen to what the Holy Spirit is telling you, and you'll know what to do for you and your family. And so in that way, I think it's a warning. But this is like many other dreams, with George Washington, with Trump, with others, that there's a major battle that's taking place, and it's taking place right now. And the culmination or the big exposure of that may come through an event like you're describing. It may be a lot more literal than people would like to think. So bring your beach towels.
Bring my what?
Bring your beach towels.
Well, I've been exposed to. I went out to dinner with a bunch of kids I went to high school with. Not kids anymore, baby boomers. They have no idea what I'm into, but they're old friends and they're cool. My sense is they don't have any clue about this stuff.
Yeah.
And the same with other people. They're just living life as regular, every day. And I'm thinking, I don't know. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
But I've been blessed to hang out with people who know God and who know more and who get insight. So,
yeah, good stuff. Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you later.
Yep.
Cool. Shelly.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Hi, ladies.
That's Shelly.
Hi. I submitted this dream, but this dream is like been on the back burner, and I keep thinking about it, but I'm stuck on a couple of things, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it.
Okay.
I had this dream on January 8th, 2023. And I call it blackheads and whiteheads. That's what I call it. So I was looking in the mirror, and I was looking at my face, specifically the left side, and I saw a blackhead. When I went to look closer to pop it, I could see a strand of hair. I pushed the skin harder, and more hair came out. I pulled the strand, and a long black braid came out. The braid had a bright pink ribbon at the end of it. It was about 6 to 7 inches in length. I turned around from the mirror and placed it on a stainless steel ledge behind me. Then I looked on the right side of my face and I saw a whitehead. When I went to squeeze that one, there was a white string, and I pulled that out the same way. It was about the same length as the braid. I turned slightly to place it on a stainless steel ledge that was in front of me to the right. And that was the dream.
Wow. We're all up in your personal business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your cosmetic routine or whatever it is. So, well, obviously being in a mirror, typically you're in a bathroom. There's several things that happen in a bathroom. There's dumping or flushing, getting rid of things that no longer serve you. There's cleansing, and then there's self-reflection. And so the idea of you're self-reflecting, you're looking in the mirror and you're examining yourself closely. You're examining your face, which represents your countenance. It represents how the world experiences you. Probably 90% of anybody's experience, if you walk up and you view them, is somebody's face. Like, unless they're, they smell horrible or they are dressed ridiculously weird. Most of us spend at least 90% of a conversation looking at somebody else's face. And so that's can literally be the mask that we wear, or some people are not good at hiding things on their face. But I think I like the juxtaposition of the black head versus the white head. I heard black hat versus white hat, and the right versus the left, which I think is interesting because it's the black head was on the left, the white head was on the right. Um, so yeah, I'm not the only one that's hearing that as well. Um, I also think that there are roots that go down, that things are a lot deeper than we see. Um, it's interesting, if you had a choice of having a black head or a white head, which one would you want? I don't know that you want either. Both of them are something that you want to rid out and get done with. And so it's the idea of literally things are not what we see at face value. They go much deeper. If you had what you described and you were pulling something, yeah, you wouldn't be pulling something out that's 6 or 7 inches long because your skin isn't that long, you
Right.
know. Um, but so it's the idea that things go way, 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 way deeper, um, than what we think, and we've seen statements like this, you know. Um, and I do think it's the idea of good versus evil. But I think that there are things that we've taken at face value as being either white or black, left or right, that all have roots of uncleanliness. Because typically, this is how your skin responds. And the skin is the biggest organ of the body. Most people forget that. This is how your skin responds to dirt, irritation, or what could be known as a corruption. When something comes in, it gets irritated, and then the body begins to secrete things that then create a black head or a white head, and then that need to be healed over or popped or exposed. They need to be popped, exposed, pushed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like God is, and I think this is kind of a unilateral, um, both sides of the aisle kind of thing. It's not saying this is this and that is that. I think they're both blemishes and they're both pieces of corruption that need to be outed. Now, it's not a zero sum game, though. There's a lot of people that are like, well, the right's just as bad as the left. Well, in some cases, they are. In other cases, the left is thousandfold worse. But if you really get to what's behind the curtain is a group of people who really don't care on the right or the left. They just have a demonic agenda that they want to see forced upon the rest of us. And so they're like, yeah, go pick whatever side you like, whatever players you like, whatever team you like, and argue about that. And we're going to have our way with the world and with governments and nations because that's what we want to do. And it's those things that are the 6 or 7. It's interesting because 6 is the number of man, 7 is the number of God. So 6 or 7 inches represents the battle between the flesh, and God. It's literally good versus evil. And so that's the root. The root isn't whether it's black or white, just like it's not a race thing. It's not, well, black people versus white people. It's not right versus left. There's all of these things that are face level, skin level, that both sides have used, or the one side that's behind everything have used to try to create successfully dissension, division, separation, whether it's whatever way they want to divide people. And black versus white, right versus left are two of the biggest. And so they continue saying that, but what we really have to do is we have to push them out. We have to get to the roots, and once the roots are out, then the healing can occur, the cleansing can occur. And I feel like our face can be made like the face of Jesus. I like that verse that says, we'll be changed in an instant. Our faces will be like his, for we shall see him as he is. And so in order for that to happen, the roots underneath the skin have to be clean. The junk has to be pushed out. And then we can literally reflect the face of God. So, ladies, did you have anything?
I saw just like for the left side, that it came out eventually as a braid with a pretty pink bow on it, which makes no sense at all. It's kind of like sins being packaged. Satan's great at making sin look inviting initially and life-giving. So the pink bow to me is let's put a bow on it so it's more attractive, and we can lose sight of the fact that this came out of our skin and was gross and was not in the right place. And then it's put on a sterile, didn't you say stainless steel shelf?
Stainless steel, yeah. And it was like a sterile
place where it cannot travel and infect someone else. You're like putting it in the right place. It's contained then. It can't be, it can't perpetrate itself. It can't keep going. And then the white string, some sin just looks, or things that we get into, it tries to wrap itself up and look attractive. Others present themselves as very utilitarian, like this is reasonable, this is helpful, this is something that could be useful. We want to focus on that instead of the fact that it still was from a place that was not acceptable and shouldn't have been in there. It's almost like there are two purposes for these things that you pull out that want to distract from the fact that they don't belong in you. And so I agree with John. Funny that I do, but no, I'm just teasing.
You are so wise.
Yeah. That it is a place of self-reflection and examination. And I think you could look at it globally, but I also think you could look at it personally and just, ask the Lord, what lie am I what lie do I have a tendency to believe about the world or about because Satan's a master at this. He's got all these ages of psychology under his belt because he's watched human beings all of these thousands and thousands of years. So we put ourselves in positions without really realizing it, unless we're really careful, to be vulnerable to the things that are set up just for us to fall into those traps. So I would just ask the Lord, is there any area where I have remained vulnerable or have not stayed really diligent to be monitored and managed by you and you alone, Lord? That's just my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, Clementa, that if this is weird because that resonates a little bit more. But what John was saying, I got a lot of that too. I was stuck on the pink ribbon thing. And the 6 to 7 inches, but with the braid, the first thing I do, like twisted thinking, whether it was twisted thinking about myself that I'm not, completely aware of, or if it was a global, more a broader picture, you have people that have twisted thinking on the left. And because I saw that immediately, the left, the right, the black, the white. But it was the twisted thinking. Now of course I'm not going to say that I don't think I have twisted thinking, but the Lord could be showing me, it could be something that's deeper because I pushed harder for it to come out. So it's like, I want to get it out if it's specifically for me, but
I think there's an intentionality that the Lord expects from us about going deeper in Him. And I think as believers sometimes, because we live in such a microwave world, we don't want to take the time to just rest in Him and be quiet so that He can be heard. I don't think we're like, okay, I gave you 5 minutes. You didn't tell me I'm on my way. We have to really be intentional to hear and to walk out what He says. So,
right, I got that.
Cool stuff.
It is.
Well, thanks for being on, Shelly. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something, Denise?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that the left side is braided. There's a weaving together of whatever is there underneath stronger. It also makes it harder to get out
to break
than just a simple string.
Thank you, ladies and John.
Awesome.
That was good. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank
Take
you.
care, Sally.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All
Thanks,
right.
Kelly.
Kelsey, we haven't seen her in a minute. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I know I haven't been on in so long. I never have time.
Well, I'm glad you made time tonight.
Every Tuesday, I'm like, I have a dream. And then it's like, oh, shoot, I missed it again. Okay, well, I actually had a dream last night or this morning, and it was kind of just bizarre. And so I was like, I need to like pray about this. So I wrote some of it down. I think I'm missing parts because I was so tired, but
We like your bizarre dreams, so go ahead.
Okay. So I was at my parents' house in the dream with another like man, and in that part of the dream, it wasn't really me. It was like a third inner out of body. Like there was two men, but I was like one of the men. I don't know. Anyways, and so I had a baby, and I knew the man with me was dangerous. So I like when he wasn't watching, I jumped out of the house with my baby, and it was winter and snowy, so I was barefoot. So I was like desperate to get out and protect this baby. And so my parents had this tree with like a hollow inside of it. And I was hiding in there for a few minutes with the baby. And then I was waiting for a car because they have a long driveway and like chain fence. And so then I had the baby and I booked it to jump into a car because I knew I needed to like get out so he couldn't find me because he had a gun and all of that, I remember. And so then I was in the car. Let's see if I missed something. Oh yeah, I was in the car and I know I needed to get to like a safety place where they couldn't track me and the baby. And so I was going to this person's house that I actually know. They're like ministers and they have like a barn and an Airbnb and all this stuff. And so I was going there in the dream, and I thought I was there. Hey Owen, can you turn that off, buddy? Owen, honey, I'm on the call. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I thought I was there, and I got out and it looked like their house, but it had Chinese writing all over it. And then all of a sudden I got disorientated and I had all these like I was lost, and I got like all these flashing lights, like different colors were kept changing. And then I had this like it looked like an evil eye. Like I don't know what that whole thing is. I don't know if it was the third eye or the evil eye, but it was just like on me right there and just changing colors, and I didn't know how to come back to reality, and I was like stuck. And so then the authority there came to me, like the police officer, to show me pictures of reality, like just basic pictures of like an animal, a house, just to get me back to like, I don't know, back to reality. And then all of a sudden I woke up in real life, and it was 4:30 this morning, and we have these lights around our bed that can change colors with Google Home, and it was flashing every color. And then I was freaking out. I was like, what is happening? Like the kids were still sleeping. James was gone working, and I figured out how to turn it off. But so that was weird. So I had started looking up Bible verses, of course, for chapter 4:30, just to see what God was saying. But yeah.
Did you find any Bible verses with armed men chasing barefoot people in the snow to Chinese houses?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I was hoping, but I didn't find anything.
I was hoping, but interesting. Well, this sounds like a Denise stream.
Thanks, John.
I'm just kidding.
No, it's fine. It's interesting that you're at your parents' house. Were your parents there?
No.
So you said that you were one of the men in the dream, so it was more like a...
In the beginning I was, yeah.
Okay. So you're more of an observer at the beginning. And then you become yourself when you realize you have this baby?
I think so. I never saw myself, but I could see the man and thought it was me. Yeah.
Well, I found it interesting that it's in the winter time, and which to me is a time of it's cold. It's a time of solace, solitude. Sometimes people think it's a lonely place in the wintertime that, I don't want to say death, but just when everything's asleep in nature, right? You're clearly protecting something, whether this baby is a literal baby or whether it's something that you've birthed. It may be somebody else's that you try to protect. It's interesting that you go to a barn, and I think of storehouses, right? Where, isn't that what you said? You saw it was a barn and it was like a pastor or somebody you knew, but it ended up being something else.
Yeah, they have like a farm, but they have like a barn they do events at, like a nice sort of barn. And they have an Airbnb also. So
yeah, there's just a sense of some level of infiltration is what I'm getting. I don't have it real clear or specific. I don't know if Clarinda or John have something that that you're stuck, third eye observe, somebody or something else is observing. A lot of details there. I need a little bit of time, I think.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that you understood that you were not thinking clearly and that you were stuck in make-believe. I think that's what you said. Typically people who are stuck in make-believe don't know they're stuck in make-believe. I mean, when people are out of their head, I mean, there are some, I'm sure, but that's not a typical understanding. So I mean, the winter time is time. Oh, go ahead.
I feel like you're in a hallway, like a place of transition, like you just went through an open door and that you're shrunking down under. I'm sorry.
Oh, I got it. Now it took me a
second. Go ahead, Clarinda.
Well, I don't even know if I have this on target, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So you're in a place where you're at your parents' house, which means you're in a place where you are comfortable. You're with, they may not be there, but it represents family and generations, and it could be just the family of God. I don't know what your relationship is with your family, but it could just be what you anticipate to be a safe place. But there's a threat, and I don't think it's a real baby. I think it's something you birthed or someone else birthed, and you have sort of been given the charge of protection and safety for that. It could be a self-given charge, or it could be something someone else asked you to watch over. But so the whole car thing, and I don't want to be too, I know every time we hear a vehicle, we have this tendency to think ministry, but in this case, I kind of think of ministry because you're waiting for the ministers or the ministry or the people of the Lord to come and give assistance. And you've really gone out on a limb, so to speak. You're hiding inside of a tree, but you're barefoot. Like you are working hard to avoid the things of the world that could bring harm to this little one or this new thing. And so you're willing to go to great extents. I mean, there's something that you feel very responsible for. And so you're looking for this car so you can jump in. It's the family, it's the ministers, I don't know who it is, but it's somehow related to the family of God ministry of some term. And you're headed to the safe place, which is reinforced by the fact that it's to this people's home that our ministers have an Airbnb, have a barn that provides food, spiritual food, and other food for individuals coming through. But when you get there, you see the Chinese writing, which means that you're caught by surprise. This ministry is not really what you thought it was. There are hidden elements that either you are beginning to realize or you will be given a heads up about by the Lord. And I'm not saying this as literal, but I feel like there's something that the Lord wants to show you it's not as real as you thought. And that's the reason why you have this whole the Chinese writing, and then you lose you kind of lose your mind a little bit, even though you recognize that you've lost your mind, which is the great thing about dreams. We can actually look at ourselves going out of control. And so you're recognizing that you're having cognitive dissonance. You're not adjusting mentally and emotionally to this switcheroo that's happening. And the authority that comes in is the Lord. And the Lord is coming to put things in order in your head and in your heart. He's coming to bring you to a place where the truth is seen by you and you're going to be able to move forward. We don't know the rest of the story, but you almost don't need to. At this point, truth reigns because there's make-believe and then there's reality. But reality is actually truth in the kingdom of God. So that's what I see.
So this was actually your parents' house. You didn't just have a feeling that it was familiar. You recognized it as being the home you grew up in.
Mm.
And the hollowed out tree out front was, again, your parents' house.
Yeah, they used to have those trees. I think they cut them down, but it was an actual tree they had. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't exist anymore then.
Mm-hmm. No.
Interesting. Without going into any detail at all, a friend of mine just had a dream very similar related to the kidnapping of a small child and had details of what the building looked like, what the town, what was happening, where. Really felt led to take the dream as literal and share it with another friend that works in human trafficking. And they took a road trip to that place and found things pretty much very close, if not exact, to what. So, first, the fact that you're in a man's body is interesting because this dream is not about you and it may not be about your time frame. The fact that the trees are no longer there was a hollow, whatever, it's not the case anymore, to me means that God could be exposing something that actually happened in the past, in which case a lot of this could be literal. The idea that they went to a safe place, but there was Chinese writing. They were drugged. They were the spy. There was trying to be brought back to reality. To me, it represents somebody that's being controlled, mind control in particular. If you've gone even slightly down the rabbit hole of what happens when people go through that process, it sounds very similar to some of the things that you're describing here. And so I wonder if what I would recommend is to share this dream with your mom and dad and to watch their expression and to see if they know of anybody or anything that happened at that house that was similar to two men, one armed, one escaping with a child, hiding in the, in the hollow, getting in to a car, taking off, going to another place. And they may not know the rest of the story. But I think this could, to me, it has a feeling that it could be a literal. And if that's the case, there's very little of this that would be figurative. I feel like the fact that I feel like the people controlling may be the people, the writing on the wall at the barn, at the safe house. It may have to do with an infiltration of a foreign agent on American soil. A lot of the stuff that people are seeing in dreams, and it can be a lot more literal than people realize. And so I think I think I would do a little bit of research. I would start with your mom and dad, maybe even go back and look at the history of the house. And again, I've had several conversations in the last couple of days where people had dreams like this, and they found people that were being trafficked because of these dreams. And in particular, the fact that you are not you, that you are somebody else. It's almost like, and people don't understand this dynamic a lot in dreams, that God can literally give you the eyesight or the perspective of somebody else, and you can like be in their body, running away from a place that you knew as safe or something, and experience something completely different, like you're in almost an out of body experience.
Yeah.
So I do think that, yes, there is a lot of the church. There's a lot that needs to be exposed in the church. And I think a lot of that is going to be interesting in days to come. It's going to be very painful for a lot of people because, again, there were people that we trusted. We kind of took at face value. They're the good guys, and they were not the good guys. And they had no intention of being the good guys. And not across the board, not in all cases. Not everybody's evil or good completely. But I think this is more about the child than it is about the two men. And it's more about getting that child to a place of safety. And then what happens afterwards is there was this drunken, drug induced, whatever, psychedelic stupor that you're trying, the man in the dream who you are seeing through his eyes is trying to come back from. And so that could lead to a history of addiction. It could lead to, being slipped a Mickey. It could be any number of things. They've been poisoned, they've been drugged. Um, but no matter how they got there, the outcome is the same. They started in a safe place with somebody that they didn't know. They left to get somebody else, not them, to a safe place. They went to a place they thought would be safe, and things weren't as they seem. So I think it's just interesting that this could be literal, because again, for a long time, I looked at most of these dreams as as being figurative.
Yeah.
Because most of us that deal with typical, relatively normal people and relatively normal life would think of it that way. But if you start hanging out with people that rescue kids from human trafficking, you realize that a lot of churches, pastors, leaders, governmental leaders, they don't even have any clue as to how bad the problem is. Like, none at all. But I think God is not just about waking people up and bringing attention to something. He's not on a campaign of awareness. God is not on an awareness campaign of human trafficking. God is all about saving children, rescuing kids, doing what needs to be done to make sure that doesn't happen again. Part of that, is exposure.
Yeah, that's crazy though, because I've had so many dreams about me saving babies, but I've had like 2 prophetic words in the last 2 months about me rescuing children, or just all about children, not just my own, because I have a lot of them. But so yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I don't think it's about you or your situation. It's interesting that the tie to that house was literal, but it doesn't exist any longer because the trees aren't out front anymore. And so that's why I think could be about something in your family's past that needs to be exposed. That, again, it could be before you were alive. It could be when you were a kid. It could be, we don't have any idea, but I would go down that road and leave no stone unturned. When God has challenged us to take a dream that it seemed at face value. There was a dream somebody had about a slave ship in the 1700s, and we knew what date they thought it was in the 1700s, and that person took it to somebody else that was in the military, and what they came back with is this might be literal, and they had access to the logs of the same ship from the 1700s, and went all the way back like 200 plus years. and found that in the log of the ship, the situation that they had seen in the dream was exactly as described. And we never would have thought, that God is talking about something that happened in the late 1700s. And he absolutely was. And he was talking about it in a very frank and historic way versus a figurative way. The dream wasn't figurative at all. It was talking about a historic event. And then we get to go flush out the history, go read the books, watch the movies, Google, go down the rabbit hole and begin to see what is God saying about this situation or the people involved. And so I feel like that may be the case for you, especially if you're at all care about rescuing kids, because if so, part of that may be preparation, as God may have you dig into your own past or the past of your family to be able to reveal some things that may even reveal why God has given you such a calling and a heart for justice. And so these will be identity and legacy pieces, but they might be more down the road than they are right now. It's not, the biggest thing is to know that whatever happened, it's not about you and it's not about God comparing you to them. It's about God putting in a context that may hit closer to home than you had originally thought. So you can deal with it in the context of your own family before God calls you to go out. And particularly from a bloodline or a generational thing, you want to make sure that if you're going to go fight human trafficking, that there's nothing that the enemy can point to and say, well, this existed in her family or in her bloodline. You want to make sure all of that stuff is exposed and cleaned up and done before you go onto a battlefield such as pervasive as human trafficking. So kind of a heavy word, but I do think you'll find it's super cool if you do the research and there's something there. If there's nothing there at all, we can revisit the dream. But I would bet that there is something there related to that house, at least. Whether it's your family or not, something happened.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelsey, for being on. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Some of these are heavy, but we need to get them out there and talk about them. So if God brings it up, yes, if God brings it up, then let's find out what he's saying. Aunt Renee, are you there?
Hello.
Hey there.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Right.
Oh, doing good. Trying to multitask. Okay, so now this dream I had when I was 16. Now I'm not gonna tell you how old I am. I was 16 when I had it. And I hadn't recently I've been, doing the dream interpretation with you guys for about since I think last summer. So I just kept it in the back of my mind. But okay, here it goes. So I was in the home at the time where we lived, and I don't know if you guys seen that movie, Fifth Element, with what's the guy? Not Chris Rock. I don't know his name. He was a comedian with a real high voice, but the
Chris
alien,
Tucker?
yeah, the aliens that was in that movie. So I was in the house and I went outside. There were sirens going on, and then I looked at the sky and it started to turn gray. And then I saw aliens, so I went and got a shotgun and started shooting in the sky, trying to shoot at the aliens. And then one started flying down towards me, and it came to the front door, took the shotgun out of my hand, and started, walking towards me. And I was backing up, and it said 16 years. And then that was the end of that dream. And then it went straight into another dream where it looked like this person was. It looked like it was a man that was on a morgue, a table in a morgue, but he looked like a giant, and he had tan. He was, he looked Caucasian, but he was bald head. He was longer than the table, but he wasn't dead. He looked dead, but he wasn't dead. And he spoke to my mind and he said the two numbers, 33 and 37. And that was it. And I never really understood. So that dream just stayed with me. But recently, I was thinking about, as far as the first part of the dream, 16 years. So I added that up from the time frame when I had the dream, and then 16 years later, I ended up going to Charis Bible College, like starting over, basically, like rededicating my life. So I don't know if it had anything to do with that. And that was also the year that I got a divorce. So I'm not sure if that was associated with the dream or not.
Interesting. I think there's a lot there. Numbers dreams are always super interesting. When you talked about um, shooting aliens, especially when you said the sky is gray, I heard the song California Dreaming. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. 33 to me, a lot of times just immediately highlights the idea of Freemasonry. 33 levels of to be whatever master mason or whatever I don't know the terms. I'm not involved in it, but and a lot of times when that shows up, it's got highlighting um, a something in a generation or a bloodline or a family that may need to be cleansed because they take oaths, and it could be your great 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 grandpa. It doesn't matter. They take oaths cursing their generations and their bloodline, and if I ever reveal any of this, then this happens and that happens. And I mean, it's really weird. Some of the stuff that people don't have any idea when they get involved in that. They think it's just a club and it's part of this or that, and they're looking for belonging, but they're really bringing things on their bloodline that that has to be cleansed. In fact, I just went, and it's the second time I've done it. I went through a cleansing where you actually go and renounce all of the incantations and curses through all 33 levels of what they say. And as far as I know, there's no trace of it in my bloodline, but I just want to make sure because it could be 5 generations past and we don't have any idea what grandpa or great grandpa was into. So, yeah, the hierarchy 33 is the highest degree in Freemasonry. There's a lot of symbolism related to 33. So if you're seeing 33 everywhere, that's probably by design. I have some friends that keep dreaming about the number 33, and I asked them if they knew anything about Freemasonry, and they'd never even heard of it. They didn't know what it was. And they called their mom, and yeah, dad was a master mason, and grandma was an Eastern Star, which is like the female version of it. And it was like, holy cow, your entire family was involved in this whole thing. And so they know that it's something that they need to look at. 16 is interesting. I hear sweet 16. Let me say this generally. There are groups of people that people join and want to belong to that bring their kids to certain events, and they may end up offering their kids or doing a ceremony involving the kids that the kids don't know about. And by the way, that can go any way you're thinking. It can go horribly bad, or it could be just while they're dedicating their kid to an idea. There's candles, there's something is being said, whatever. But 16 represents culturally the whole idea of sweet 16 and never been kissed kind of thing represents the idea of purity, of a transition in a girl's life, of things like that. And so that could also point to something related to the number 33. I don't get anything for 37. And I don't know, Denise, Clorinda, obviously there's a lot more to the dream than just the numbers, but the numbers obviously stick out. The idea of fighting aliens is the idea of fighting something that is so far beyond your realm of possibility, it's almost hard for you to even believe it's real. just like, if you don't have any background in witchcraft or Satanism or sacrifice or, satanic ritual abuse or Freemasonry or any of these things, if you've never heard of these things and you start to go down the rabbit hole and start reading stories of survivors, you're like, what in the heck is even going on? Because most of us just thankfully don't think that way. So that's what I got. Huh?
The closest thing I can say, as far as like if any of those things are in my family line, I can't say. I mean, but my family is very secretive. So who knows? But I did my I think she's my sixth great grandmother. She was in the Mississippi narratives, the slave narratives, and she spoke about her mother at the time, her and her mother around the time of the emancipation. And then later on, her mom coming and talking about she thinks somebody cast a spell on her because there was some weird things going on with her and she felt ill or something. So that's the only thing, relative to what you mentioned that I know about in the family.
It's interesting that the dream, you're 16 in the dream, and whatever you're fighting even acknowledges your age. And when I think of 16, like sweet 16, but it's also an age of innocence. And if we take the number 33 and 37 and just think of them in just very basically as an age, there's 4 years difference. And the 4 could be talking about some form of restoration. Just as a thought, just strictly looking at it as an age or a time marker of some kind.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a mystery here. God does this because he wants us to seek it out. It's not that he doesn't want to tell us, but if he just came out and said, there's weird stuff in your bloodline, we'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like if we got that in a dream, most of us would blow it off. But if we take the time to do the research and to find out and to talk to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa and begin to go down the rabbit hole of what is God saying, it hits harder when we get to the end. And I know people who have found incredible things in their bloodline, some of stuff that they've had to repent for, and other things that weren't bad at all. Somebody put up Psalm 37, which I think is really good because it talks about there's a lot there, but also Ezekiel 37, the valley of dry bones. Why does that keep turning off? Yeah. So I think that's Ezekiel 37 is huge. It's the idea of resurrecting the dead. What was
And
once alive.
looking up those numbers, even over the years, that's what I just kept thinking as far as more so restoration. Because there were a lot of behavioral things going on in our family and things that, let's just say, was not pleasing that I no longer wanted to be connected to. And that year, 16 years after the dream, that was really significant for me because that's when I decided to fully start walking with the Lord. Not saying that I wasn't before; it was like a backslidden state, but leaving my ex-husband, saying, "Hey, God, I'm totally going to go forth with what you have for me," and then starting to go to Bible college. And it was significant for me personally, but outside of that, I'm still searching. Yeah, so I'll continue to seek things out.
If we took it literally, just a thought, when you were 33, it was, so 16 and 16 is 32. The next year is 33. So you're in the middle of you kind of are establishing yourself on this new pathway that you've chosen with the Lord. And I'm wondering 4 years later, so when you were 37, were there any big events there, or did you finish college then? Or, I was just curious.
I'm not 37.
No. I know.
Oh, you saying?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fuzzy. I can't see how old you are.
Well, I'll be 37 this year.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I'm just wondering if those two dates have to do, honestly, with literal ages, because
me
we're
too.
struggling to see. So I would just say, bring it on, Lord. Show it to me. But one thing was, I want to make sure I heard it correctly. You said that there was a man on the table in the morgue. He was overly large. He hung over the edges of the morgue table, and he spoke to your mind, or he said something.
So it was just like, what is that called? He wasn't
ESP or
actually, yeah.
Telepathy,
It was just
yeah.
like, yeah. And
Okay.
I heard him say just the numbers 33, 37.
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought I was thinking that too, that it could be ages. It could be something happening, something that started when you were 32 that may have to do with warfare, fighting something that was alien to you, because that was what was happening in the dream during that time. That was the setting of the 16, and you were 16, and so that would be 32. And then the idea of defeating a giant. The giant was on the gurney, and he was supposed to be dead, and he looked dead, but he wasn't dead. And so that could be, and I think all of this relates together with the Freemasonry thing. I think that there's some things in your bloodline that God wants to clear up by the time you're 37. And there's a giant that may be something, it could be just a lot of families struggle with alcoholism. So it could be maybe there was alcoholism. Maybe it's like, wow, that's not a struggle with our family anymore, but our great grandpa used to struggle with that. And God could be saying, well, there might still be some of that there, that there may be an addiction that somebody has, that, teenage kids or nieces or nephews smoking pot, or, whatever. It
Yeah.
could be related to a spirit of addiction where it's like, no, that hasn't manifested. We're not alcoholics, and again, most family bloodlines have struggled with that at some level. But then when there's a level of freedom that's gained, a lot of times that level of freedom lasts for multiple generations. But I feel like God is saying there's something that appears dead that's not dead, that he wants to defeat for you. And it could be this. It could be 33 has to do with Freemasonry, and 37 has to do with the age when it will be defeated. And so I would look into the Freemasonry stuff. I would look into, and if you send us an email at dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com, we can send you resources on that. But I would also look into your own family history and maybe talk to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever's around, and say, is there something we struggled with? There's something that happened that our family struggled with when I was 16. Is there something that happened when I was 32? Is there something 33? Is there something related to Freemasonry? And, what's the status of what's going on in our family now?
Okay. Yeah. All right. I got to go pick up my girls. I thank you guys.
All right. Awesome.
Appreciate it. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Take care. Fun stuff. All right. Dusty.
Hi, how are y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. My husband had a disturbing dream about me last night.
All right. Those are fun.
Oh, right. Yes. So I guess we were in a restaurant, but we were out in the patio area, and he said I was extremely drunk, and he was embarrassed and trying to handle me. And I went inside the restaurant, and there was a girl that was following, and she was telling him, my husband, to leave me alone, just let me be. And then he said I went into what turned into a bedroom. Oh, wait, before I went into the bedroom, he said I pooped in my pants, but it got all over the wall in the restaurant, and there was a gnat that was in the poop. And then he said I went into the bedroom, and I started jumping on the bed, pouting, because he wouldn't leave me alone. And then he said I threw up everywhere, and it was all over the floor, and there was peas and carrots in it. And then his sister tried to close the door, and she got my throw up on her hand. And then he said I was just laying on the bed, kind of in my poop and my throw up.
What a beautiful dream.
And I was like, geez. Are you mad at me? What's going on?
I can like smell this dream. It's just like, oh.
No, that's what I was like. Wow, you must think the world of me.
Yeah. Interesting. All right.
Do I need to repent of something that I don't know about?
Well, whatever it is being put on display. Like, you couldn't be more disruptive at a restaurant than to go through all of these phases of stuff that you're doing. Being drunk, being loud, we'll leave her alone, and then, bowel movements, and then stuff all over the walls, and then jumping on the bed in the other room, and then throwing up, and then it does sound like, it does sound like it could be deliverance. But yeah, it is pretty detailed. I heard the word vomit. Okay.
Well, with deliverance, I mean, I've gone through a couple deliverances. I actually just did deliverance on someone today, 2 people, but I mean, I'm willing to do more.
You did deliverance on somebody else today?
Yeah, on 2 people, 2 different people.
Interesting. Well, let me just kind of go with a couple of things. Yeah, peas and carrots. I heard the same thing. Forrest Gump, me and Jenny. And so it represents a strong bond, particularly on the male side, because it's Forrest saying this is describing our relationship. So I feel like this could represent, in the midst of all of this stuff that's happening, that your relationship with your husband is still strong. The gnat in the poo, what I heard was a fly in the ointment. Not that poo is really much ointment, but it's just the idea of, there's something more to it. Obviously, we can see the overtones of deliverance, cleansing. I mean, everybody's seeing that. The idea of being drunk, though, particularly represents not being in your right mind. And that's a season or a state. Inebriation is typically a self-brought on state that people are in, where they're feeling that and they're going through that or whatever. And it can be obviously certainly disruptive. The cleansing from both sides is interesting. There's 2 levels of cleansing. There's a cleansing of your mouth, and there's a cleansing on what you've taken in and digested, of your stomach, of your bowels, right? So it's coming out both ends here. The jumping too is also interesting, because what it's talking about is this is a movement is happening. You're symbolic of the church. We will stop our tantrums and grow up and embrace the Pentecostal gift. That's interesting.
Oh, I love that. That means so much to me, because I grew up at Calvary and we talked about the gifts, but we didn't do the gifts. So, and now I'm just all about, not just the whole Word of God, but also doing the whole Word of God, which is Mark 16:17.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, Denise or Clorinda, do you have anything?
I think it's
Go ahead, Denise.
interesting that it starts out very public, this public display of whatever you're getting rid of. Then you end up in a bedroom, and it continues, and that's more of that private place, that intimate place. So which is leading me to think that maybe there's something, for you personally or relationally, that needs to be cleaned up. I don't know.
I'm thinking about, what is it that your husband or his sister actually tried to do that they thought would be helpful. You know what I mean? Like controlling someone who's in the middle of that isn't necessarily love. It's usually inspired by, let's get this person out of view because they're an embarrassment, rather than responding to them out of a position of love. I think John's onto something though with it. It's coming out both ends. Like things are just, there's no room for anything that's not totally of the Lord. There's no room. It's just, it's not going to be tolerated. And I don't know whether, so I'm not hearing anything from the Lord about it other than just from someone who loves the Lord. I would just, sometimes when we're in deliverance, and I'm right there with you, I pray for deliverance for people fairly regularly. And my husband and I are just really faithful to pray over one another, so that there's nothing that we've been in the midst of taking care of that's attached itself. And I don't mean like a whole spirit has jumped on. I don't mean that. I'm just talking about our perspective, our view of the Lord, our whatever, the world, we live in a fallen world. We're going to get smudged every day. And so I'm speaking to the choir, I can tell, but just that daily cleansing of whatever has altered our view of Christ, and the Lord could be, we just ask, my husband and I, we just ask forgiveness every day for those things. So, I'm not saying that I'm hearing that from the Lord. I'm just saying that would be a precaution. I know that's kind of a wimpy answer, but that's what I have.
No, I think it's important. I'm continually repenting or making sure I'm right with the Lord.
So you have a deliverance ministry?
Well, it's not my own, I guess you could say. Just I'm involved in a ministry that does deliverance.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting that. Does your husband support that?
Yes.
Okay.
He wants to start doing it, but he hasn't yet.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that what's happening is started with a spirit of addiction and ends up being in isolation and then creating a mess on two levels in two different rooms. And so even the context of what's happening in one room versus what's happening in another room is different. I think what's happening in the bedroom could be related to, not to you personally, but it could be something that you deal with, which could be sexual spirits, spirits that have to do with, all kinds of sexual issues in a marriage. I'm not putting this on you. I don't believe this applies to you. I'm saying this could be something that you're dealing with, and what he's seeing in the dream is he's seeing played out a manifestation of what you're actually dealing with. So you would be working with someone else, delivering them, versus I'm struggling in this area.
I see what you're saying.
It sounds the same to say you're dealing with something in the bedroom, pouting, jumping on the bed, throwing up, and then something that his sister can't handle. Literally, she goes to close the door, it gets on her hand. It's like, ooh, what a mess, And so I think this has to do, have you gone through deliverance personally before?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, bedroom speaks of the
But we need to remember that this dream was given to your husband.
Yeah.
So it's a message to your husband. And to me, there's a covering that he provides you, which of course maybe it's saying maybe the Lord's trying to tell him, hey, step up, cover your wife a little bit more so she doesn't have to deal with the mess of what Satan would want to produce in her life, as a result of this thing she's doing for me. Just a thought.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's definitely a lot there. It's a deep level of cleansing. It's in two settings. The restaurant is one, because a restaurant is normally where you take food in and you're, kind of going out the other end there. And then the bedroom is typically a place of rest and a place of intimacy, but not a place of jumping on the bed and throwing up typically.
Yeah.
So I think there's two things, one related to alcoholism and addiction, which can happen at a restaurant, and one related to intimacy issues in the bedroom. And what you're seeing is in the midst of what's happening, your husband is viewing you could represent deliverance ministry, right? So what your husband is seeing is the manifestation of things in these two arenas of addiction, food, drunkenness, whatever, and the intimacy stuff as being things that you're going to have to, or you may be called to deal with. Not that it's you personally, but that you're in the midst of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dusty.
Helpful.
Appreciate you
Very
being on.
helpful. Thank you.
All right, Frida.
Oh my goodness, good evening.
How are you?
Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much. How are you all?
Good.
Good. Okay, this will be super short. They were super short dreams. So and they were in a close period of each other. So just wondering if they might be related. Again, super short. So the one was on January 1st of this year, 2023. And I dreamed I had a baby it was like a baby that I had not provided a lot of like hands-on care to. Like at one point I was gonna, take the baby out somewhere, and then I realized, oh shoot, I never even bought the baby any clothes. And then all of a sudden the baby almost instantly like grew up into like a really tall girl, like really fat, like almost instantly. And then I was kind of like hugging the girl, and then so that was on January 1st. And then on February 15th, 2023, I had another dream about a baby. I dreamed I had a baby girl again. I would say this baby was maybe around, 9 months or so. That wasn't really significant. It was just that the baby was not at an age that the baby should be talking. And so all of a sudden I was, kind of playing with the baby, with the relative, and trying to get the baby to say a word. And then the baby ended up like talking in complete sentences. And then I was like marveling at this. And I started telling my relatives, like, oh my gosh, the baby can talk. She's like saying complete sentences. And that was that. So I'm just curious if these dreams could be for baby girls. I don't know if that's I'm not having any babies, so I definitely don't think it's literal.
Are you married?
I am divorced.
Okay.
So this is not literal. And I am, getting beyond the age of, I don't think it's literal at all.
No, I don't think it's about having babies. I think the first one is about the year. The first one, because you had it on January 1st. God is saying there are things that are going to happen this year that are going to cause you to, put on become a big girl, So it's about the growth that you're going to have in this year is going to happen, and it's going to happen quickly. So I think it's talking about you personally, but I feel like the baby is either you, not that you're a baby, but the baby is the year. It's a new beginning, the start of a new year. And the idea that you weren't prepared. You weren't prepared for the growth that is going to happen this year. The second one happened the day after Valentine's Day. So I think it's about love. And I feel like the same thing, that you're going to meet somebody, or there's something that's going to happen in a relationship in your life. And it could be on a family level, not necessarily a romantic level. I feel like it's a romantic level because it's the day after Valentine's Day. That is going to be, it's going to grow up quick to the place that you're talking in complete sentences, not you, but the baby. There's a maturation of communication that happens rather quickly. It started in its infancy. It may be a relationship or something, or even a friendship that started around that time, that you enjoy a high level of communication from that normally you wouldn't have.
Okay.
Denise or Clorinda?
I don't know about, I'm not hearing, it's not that I'm not hearing, I'm just hearing something a little different. I'm hearing that it's time for you to attend to who you are and attend to your identity in the Lord. Who are you in the Lord? You need to ask yourself that question, because it's not I do believe the baby is you, and not that you're a baby and not that you're immature. That's not what I'm saying. But I do, as John said, I think that what the dream says to me is that you tend to give attention to others more than yourself. And you need to not be self-centered or self-focused, but you need to know who you need to take the time to stop and understand who you are in the Lord. And as you understand and really grasp who you are in the Lord and affirm your identity in Him, what's going to happen is that you're going to start maturing at such a rate, and you're going to have a level of communication with the Lord that's out of this world. Because you don't learn to just talk, you learn to listen as you grow older. You know, as you mature in a relationship, it's about active listening and active talking. And I just see the Lord saying, I'm ready to step into something deeper with you. I'm ready to talk with you about deeper things, not just running to me when there's a crisis, or saying, oh yeah, God, I loved how you did that, and going away. He wants to spend time with you, and He wants you to know who you are in Him. He's really after your heart. That's what I see.
What she said.
Ditto.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That definitely does resonate, because just even what you said about taking, so I'm a single mom. I'm divorced and been divorced for a number of years. I'm a single mom right now, and I still have 3 kids at home, one out of the house with his own family. And definitely that, not, like just always attending to everybody else. But I do love the Lord, and it definitely resonates with me, because that is my desire, to just have that more, more intimacy, deeper. Definitely, I want to hear, I want to hear from the Lord and be able to discern His voice. And
He wants to do that. That's His desire, times 1,000. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that one of the thoughts that God shared with me the other day is there's so many people out there that are talking about intimacy with God. And I think a lot of people, when they think of intimacy with God, they think of going to a worship service or praying or spending time with God where they're talking. And I think because God has given us the revelation that dreams are His love language. And so if you really want to be intimate with someone, you learn their love language. And so it could be that God is inviting you into a deeper level of intimacy and communication by asking you to write your dreams down and pay more attention to your dreams. And again, He's telling you this through a dream. So it kind of emphasizes the point. But and even going beyond that, I mean, one of the ways that I believe we can grow, huge way we can grow at a level of intimacy with God, is by learning to understand dreams, learning to decode dreams, learning about the Joseph method, take the dreams course. We're not the only ones that have resources. We have a lot of free resources on YouTube. We have some paid classes, some things. There's other people that have some stuff too. But really pressing in to understand and hear from the Father in that level. I mean, it's literally pillow talk from God. Like if you want to grow in a level of intimacy, look, if you've listened to any of the program tonight, you can see God talks about incredible and amazing stuff. Some of it about rescuing kids, others about deliverance, about families, about relationships. Like there's what's going on in the world. There's so much that God wants to bring to you and bless you with. And so I think that it could be an invitation for you, and it could be the very thing that causes you to grow at an exponential level, both in your stature says Jesus grew in stature and favor with God and men. And that's the idea of the tall girl. And that's the idea, again, the baby, I feel like, represents time. The new year, it could represent you as well, but it represents this gift of the new year. So it can happen this year, which could be why he gave you the dream, but also the depth of communication and the maturing of the communication. Because again, I mean, I've grown so much in my relationship with God through dreams. It's directed my life. It's told me where to move. It's told me who to be in community with. It's told me what companies to build, what things to pursue, and even given us plans. I mean, there's such a depth. People have no concept. And we're here ringing the bell on dreams all the time. And so I think people are, yeah, you're the dream guy, so whatever. But I'm telling you, if you want to get intimate with God, I don't believe there is a better way than to understand personally dreams and what God is saying, because these are personal love letters from him to you every single night. And we all dream every night, whether we remember them or not is something else. But if we begin to create that expectation and ask God questions, even when we go to sleep, he will answer us, and he will give us information about things. And then put a journal next to the bed, turn off your phone, write them. So when you wake up, there's no distractions. Position yourself to hear God. I mean, during the year 2020, I set my schedule so I could take not a 20-minute nap, a 3-hour nap in the middle of the day, because I wanted the opportunity to hear from God twice, when I sleep at night and at a nap during the day. And I got so much closer to him, particularly related to his language of dreams in 2020, which launched everything that we're doing now, because of that time of pressing in. And so I think it's an invitation to a deeper level of intimacy and a very quick and elevated level of growth and communication with the Father.
Well, just quickly, that really resonates with me too. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad I found you all on the internet, because I think I shared last week when I called for the first time that I've been a dreamer. God has always dealt with me in dreams since I was a little girl. And I used to have, I would have so many literal dreams, but when I would have the dreams that I couldn't really understand, and not that I understood all the literal ones, but especially the ones that were more figurative, symbolic, those dreams when I couldn't understand as much, I didn't maybe, write them down, or I would just go on like, okay, well, I don't know what that meant. But lately, over the last, year or so, and now especially this year, I've been really, I really want to learn more. I've been praying that the Lord would help me to begin to interpret my dreams, and I need to write them down more, because I forget I'm 50 years old now, so I forget quicker. So but that definitely resonates with me. It is my desire. And I've been telling the Lord, I don't want to miss anything that he's saying to me by not writing them down, by forgetting, by not having the understanding of what he's saying. So that resonates.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on tonight.
So, thank you so much. Blessings. Thank you.
That's you. Welcome.
Take care. All right, ladies. Good job. First time in the saddle doing dream interpretation. I think you guys did incredibly well. See how easy that was? It was a piece of cake, right? So
it wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad at all.
No.
But thank you guys for being on. And again, we're here typically every Tuesday. We've been doing this for about 2 years. And we may change how we do things in the future, but right now we're every Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for making us part of your Tuesday night, or if you watch us on replay. Again, check out Dream Life Decoded on YouTube. We have a lot of resources. One of the best that a lot of us love is the Dreams Through the Bible series. It's a free course. It's 22 episodes long, 55 minutes each episode, where we go through every single dream in the Bible and every verse on dreams. We also have the Dreams course. We have the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship. And you can find those resources or hear us talk about them. The links are on our YouTube page. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you next time on Live Dreams. Good night.
Good night.